Well, Sydney's Jewish community is gathering here this evening. Organisers say around 10,000 people are expected to attend, and that includes the opposition leader Peter Dutton and New South Wales Premier Chris Minns. People are currently pouring into this park in Vaucluse in Sydney's east, which has a very high Jewish population. Now, similarly to events in Melbourne, Canberra and around the country, community members say they're mourning each of the hostages who have died and calling for the return of those still held. It's been a day of reflection and grieving. At a dawn service by Bondi Beach, prayers and tears, Sydney's Jewish community commemorating a solemn anniversary. Good evening, Anton. Well, it's certainly a sombre mood here. As you can see, there's hundreds of people gathered behind me for this silent vigil to commemorate the lives of Jesse Baird and Luke Davies. It's a public outlet for the grief shared not only by the family, friends and colleagues of the two men, but also by the broader LGBTIQ+ community and also the broader Sydney population who have been really shocked by the deaths of this young couple who were allegedly murdered by a serving New South Wales police officer in their home not far from here in Paddington. Good evening, Janice. Well, the overwhelming mood here has been one of sadness, an incredibly sombre affair following a week's worth of grief after the attacks at Bondi Junction, Westfield, about 10 minutes away from where we are now at Bondi Beach. Dozens have rallied outside Sydney's Town Hall ahead of the sentencing of Australian-Chinese dual national Gordon in Hong Kong. The energy here has been euphoric despite extreme heat and now rain at the first of Taylor Swift's 4 Sydney shows after the Australian leg of her tour kicked off in Melbourne last weekend. The encampment here at the University of Sydney has grown significantly since it first began about 10 days ago. Many more tents spilling out onto these lawns, as is the case at several other Australian campuses. But as a counter-protest movement continues to gather steam, questions are being asked about when or if universities will step in to prevent an escalation of tensions between opposing groups. Hazard reduction burns like these are currently taking place across the country, a critical tool to reduce fuel loads. But wet weather and an early start to the fire season in some regions means many areas are behind on their hazard reduction burn targets. Gathering here outside the Long Bay Correctional Facility where her son died, Latona Dungay is continuing her 8-year-long fight for accountability. She's hoping the United Nations Human Rights Committee make a ruling that the Australian government has a duty to prosecute Aboriginal deaths in custody. During this 5th and final block of hearings, the court will hear from witnesses over the course of this week and a further week in December before Magistrate Graham hands down her findings. Alexandra Jones, SBS World News. Ms Faruqi was also asked how she defines racism and whether she considers comments made about white people to be racist. Ms Hanson's legal team seeking to prove that Ms Faruqi is a hypocrite who is only against certain forms of racism. The advisory coincides with revelations nearly 200 Commonwealth agencies have been instructed to audit all internet-facing technology amid fears about foreign interference and cybersecurity. This area is notoriously dangerous, known for its unpredictable swells. Just a fortnight ago, 2 men, both Nepali nationals, died while rock fishing nearby, also swept off the slippery rock ledge. At another hearing tomorrow, further first-hand accounts of housing stress will be shared by migrants, international students and people living with disabilities. Faraz was one of 2 security guards stabbed while on duty here at Westfield in Bondi Junction. The attack has prompted the New South Wales government to review what sort of equipment security guards can carry. At the moment, most in New South Wales are unarmed. Updated laws could see security guards at shopping centres, hospitals and other crowded areas authorised to carry handcuffs, batons and pepper spray, but that won't be extended to firearms and tasers. This sea of flowers here at Bondi Junction has continued to grow, with people coming from near and far to pay their respects. The Premier has added his support behind calls to build a permanent memorial here to remember the lives lost. The clean-up here at the scene has begun. The church remains closed. Community leaders leaders across faiths and politics continuing to call for calm as investigations into both the attack and the ensuing chaos continue. The event is also highlighting calls to increase affordable access to diabetes management technologies like these, continuous glucose monitoring devices or CGMs. While his medical studies were frequently disrupted due to his health and long stays in hospital, Nikhil began exploring other ways to help people, becoming interested in medical technology. He started collaborating with engineers and founding an innovation that later won Best Australian Student Startup of 2019. This community donation comes at a critical time. With supplies dwindling during winter, demand for whole blood has reached a 10-year high. And for plasma, that is the liquid component of blood, demand is the highest it's ever been. The report also recommends mandatory health star ratings on all packaged foods and a 20% tax on sugar-sweetened drinks. The federal Labor government says it supports universal childcare, saying at the last election it aims to implement a 90% subsidy for all families. Australia Post will now have to compete with other heavy hitters in the global parcel delivery business, acknowledging it won't be a swift return to posting a profit. Dads here say they want more support to take paid parental leave and better access to early childhood education. Of around 1,000 dads surveyed by the Fathering Project, 80% said they received no formal support for their parenting. Do you agree with some concerns within the Muslim community that the reaction to these anti-Semitic attacks is stronger than those towards Islamophobic attacks? North Korea's relationship with Russia dates back to the end of the Second World War, when the Japanese Empire collapsed, ending its 35-year occupation of the Korean peninsula. Without its own government, Korea was temporarily divided along the 38th parallel by 2 US soldiers looking at a National Geographic map. The world has a plastic problem. 450 million tonnes are produced annually, on track to double or triple by 2040. The island was a British colony until 1960, and in the years before and after independence, some Greek Cypriots sought enosis, union with the Greek state. The Human Development Report tracks social progress, including health, education and basic living standards, prescribing a score to each country known as the Human Development Index. Data shows plastic makes up 79% of litter in waterways across Australia, excluding the Northern Territory. The latest report shows a 28% increase in intimate partner homicides involving a female victim from the previous year. When we take antibiotics, they kill nearly all the bacteria, but a tiny percentage has natural defence and survives. They reproduce or share their resistant genes, and as the process repeats itself, we're eventually left with superbugs. The weather forecast not dampening spirits of crews and spectators here at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. Final preparations being made before boats like these head out to the starting line. Brighton Sands here in Sydney, just one of many beaches across the country, brimming with crowds celebrating the start of another year. The Alma Orchestra will be showcasing their fusion of traditional Portuguese music, contemporary fado and jazz next week as part of the Sydney International Women's Jazz Festival. In her new work, Salote Tawale continues to combine the past with the present. Created specifically for this space are a series of installations that serve as a memory bank, including a partial replica of the artist's Fijian family home and a series of cardboard masks, each with their own symbolic meaning. Helping identify frogs like these is just part of the project. Now, with close to 1 million sound recordings, the Frog ID app has helped identify 5 new species, produced 20 research papers, and even inspired an ARIA-nominated album.